Hello, everyone. I hope that you can hear me. Welcome to today's web topics webinar, AI chatbots threat or opportunity. My name is Irena Milkovic, and I'm working for MDPI as a journal relations specialist, and today I will be your host. So let's start with this short introduction. Today we have two speakers, Dr. Ibrahim Demir, and speaker number 2 is Dr. Haridimos Kondelakis. So welcome both of you, and thank you for your time and participation. I will talk about our company MDPI, but I'm sure that you're familiar with our company. As you know, MDPI is a pioneer in scholarly open access publishing, established in 1996, based in Basel in Switzerland. We have 427 diverse and open access journals, including 480 peer-reviewed journals and 9 conference journals. Also, we are supported by more than 1,500 academic experts, and we all share our main goal to provide a high-quality service for authors and readers. Today's webinar is co-organized by 8 journals. First of all, IA, algorithms, big data and cognitive computing, future internet, informatics, information, languages, and publication. On the right side, you can see their site score, except for IA, this journal is still without the site score. Today webinar is organized like this. Now we have this small introduction. After that, we will welcome our first speaker, Dr. Ibrahim Demir, and I will give a word to him. He will talk about AI chatbots, opportunities and challenges in engineering research, education, and practice. His speak will be around 25 minutes. After that, we will have a QA session for around 15 minutes. After this first QA session, we will welcome our second speaker, Dr. Haridimos Kondelakis. He will talk about summary GPT, leveraging ChatGPT for summarizing knowledge graphs. Also, after his speech, we will have a second Q&A session, and after all, we will close this webinar. A relevant topic for this webinar is entitled AI chatbots threat or opportunity, which is edited by several professors, Anthony Bryant, Roberto Montemani, Min Chen, Paolo Bellavista, Kenny Suzuki, and Professor Dr. Janine Traffer-Steller. I just need to know that submissions, abstract submissions deadline is 29 February next year. And I will just say several sentences about our first speaker. First of all, I would like to say thank you for your time and participation, and we will hear something about you now. Well, Dr. Demir is the director of the UI Hydroinformatics Lab and associate professor in 2 departments at the University of Iowa. His main research areas are the integration of the artificial intelligence and machine learning into environmental information and communication system. Dr. Demir has authored over 110 peer-reviewed publications. He is also an academic editor for the Journal of Hydroinformatics and the Environmental Modeling and Software Journal. Thank you again for your time. Our second speaker, Dr. Haridimos Kondelakis, is a researcher for with the 4th ICS from Greece. He holds a doctoral and master degree in computer science from University of Crete Greece. He is interested in big data management, semantics, and artificial intelligence. So far, Dr. Kondilakis has published more than 210 publications. He also acts as a regular reviewer and a PC member for a number of premier journals and conferences. Thank you, you two, for your time and participation in this webinar. Now, if our first speaker, Dr. Ibrahim Demir, is ready, I will give my word to him, and we can start. You can start your presentation.
Thank you for the invitation, and I'll be happy to share some of the ongoing projects that we are doing on conversational chatbots and also similar intelligent communication systems. And today I'd like to talk about the AI chatbots, specifically ChatGPT, and also some of the opportunities and challenges that we see in engineering research, education, and practice utilizing these intelligent systems. So when we think about the AI, the artificial intelligence, we have seen significant developments in recent years. We have seen AI used for autonomous systems and many novel machine learning and deep learning applications supporting engineering research and education. And we have seen AI used for cybersecurity, personal assistance, robotics, gaming, and universal translation, as well as virtual companions. And actually, this is a big change we have seen in the recent decade on utilizing AI for practical applications. This mainly comes from development of novel deep learning applications, deep learning methods, as well as availability of vast amount of data coming from both observations, measurements like satellites, radars, ground-based sensors, as well as social media and internet and many other online resources. Another critical decision or reason behind these developments is the availability of computational power. With the GPUs, we have seen significant amount of data, computational power is available for training and preparing these data. So we have seen this change in recent years with all these interesting and important developments happening in this research domain. And AI is a very broad area, very broad field. There are so many sub domains and fields under AI, but one of the critical one leading to these developments in the conversational AI systems is the natural language processing, the NLP. NLP deals with processing, manipulating, and accessing and understanding the human language inputs, the human language data. And one of the critical models under the NLP is the large language models. And we have seen recently the OpenAI released the ChatGPT, one of these models that deals with conversational natural language processing process. So when we talk about the large language models, we have seen, and they are used for text generation, classification tasks, knowledge generation, as well as translation and the dialogue generation. And one of the areas that we are talking today is dialogue generation and knowledge generation, utilizing online resources. We have seen many companies like OpenAI, Meta, and Google, and many others release their own language models in different sizes and forms with billions of parameters, and in some cases, hundreds of billions of parameters are supported by these new large language models, and people are using these models through either online playgrounds like ChatGPT website, as well as many hosted solutions, and oftentimes researchers are using these large language models through Python notebooks and other APIs so that you can access and programmatically access and utilize these language models for interaction. And when we look at the internal structure of a chatbot, we start with a natural language query and a question that goes to an online system or some sort of service, and the chatbot receives this question and, utilizing NLP, converts that question to a detailed inquiry, and this is also matched with a knowledge base, a data storage, and the response is generated utilizing NLP, and provide it back to the user. It's just a basic workflow where how we interact with the chatbots and how we can utilize, how we are using the NLP and the knowledge base in the background. But you can access these chatbots utilizing different devices and platforms, including web browsers. You can use your smartphone or a smartwatch or tablet. Also, you can use devices without any interface, like smart speakers. You don't need to have an application or interface. You can just talk and talk to your speaker and get a quick answer, as we do today with the Google Home, Amazon Echo, or and Apple Siri and other systems. Another important way to interact with chatbot is utilizing these APIs, application programming interfaces. We can programmatically ask questions for hundreds of maybe pages of text and receive an answer from that big knowledge base. So the idea is to give access to the user to this vast amount of knowledge and through a conversational AI agent, so you can interact and get the answer that you want for specific questions. Another maybe critical part is how we access the knowledge sources. So right now, ChatGPT and many other large language models are trained with potentially entire internet, with all the websites, all the Wikipedia and many other critical sources. But if you have a custom document, a custom report, a private document in your company, organization, you can also feed the chatbots like ChatGPT with an information on a website, potentially maybe updated recently, or you can pass a PDF or Word document where you have a custom information that you want to ask a question or interact. And similarly, you can pass textbooks and reports and large amounts of data yourself for those data that is not available directly to ChatGPT. Some of the data sets potentially are private or behind paywalls. So you want you can potentially pass this information yourself to ChatGPT and other chatbots and direct interact. Another area that we see the chatbots are used are interacting with other APIs, other web services. So we have seen hundreds of plugins available under these chatbots, so you can interact with other websites through APIs, and you can ask questions to a more advanced web services like calculating potential advanced math equations, or dealing with reservation, or any other online activity could be also connected to these chatbots using the APIs, the application programming interfaces. So I'd like to talk today about how we are utilizing chatbots and how we can benefit from the chatbots like ChatGPT in engineering, especially engineering research, education, and operational needs. So here are some of the critical use cases that we can think of using ChatGPT and other AI agents. One of the critical areas is education. So we can use these chatbots in a role like an instructor or a TA, a teaching assistant, and use it as a knowledge expert, focusing on only the course content. So whatever course we are teaching, we can use these chatbots for answering questions about the course content, about the course logistics, and use it as a study partner in different roles. This is one of the areas that we will potentially see significant benefit in the coming years. Another area is using ChatGPT as a research assistant that helps with the research workflow, including data collection, data integration, as well as writing codes, understanding the research maybe outlines, and generating some text, potentially journal articles, conference articles, as well as proposals and grant writing. Also another area that we will see some benefits of these chatbots. Another area is data management, data expertise. So we can use ChatGPT and other agents, other chatbots to interact with our data sets, connecting to databases and APIs, and ask questions about the data is also possible through these agents. Another area is data science expertise. We can use these chatbots to manipulate our data, interact with our data, ask advanced data analytics questions to our data sets, and get detailed answers about the data and geospatial trends, temporal trends, and then data statistics, and many other critical data analytics can be handled by these operational the chatbots. Another and maybe final area that we can highlight is operational roles. So when we think about engineering, we have engineers working in the field, in the lab, and during emergencies. And another critical area is decision making. So we could potentially automate some of the decision making steps utilizing these chatbots and information systems. So I'd like to start with the first use case, engineering education. So we have seen AI and in recent years are organized to behave or act as an instructor. So we have seen examples of AI working like a virtual teaching assistant, answering questions about the course information, logistics, policies, as well as course content. And also it can serve as a virtual tutor, answering questions about a specific homework or exam. It can answer questions about your specific chapter in the course, and you can get different ways of information from the course. Another interesting area is a study partner, having someone available 24/7, working with you, studying with you about your course, asking questions. You can interact with the AI as a study partner, and an AI chatbot can ask you questions and confirm your answers as you study exams and getting ready for homeworks. So definitely these are several different roles. We have seen in recent years that AI chatbots can support education, and some of the critical benefits of these chatbots are customized training. So the educational content can be tailored to the user's needs, understanding the students' challenges in specific chapters, specific homeworks, and in the exam. So the AI can adapt itself to teach specific concepts and supporting students in many different levels. And also we can collect a significant amount of data about the users, about the students, so we can focus on learning analytics. This will allow us to learn from the users' questions and where they are struggling, how they can improve their learning activities, and what they should focus on. And we can provide significant amount of feedback back to the instructor, back to the teaching assistant, and help students learn better and focus on different aspects. And definitely, there are so many accessibility-related benefits of ChatGPT and others. So it comes almost instantly with international language support. So you can actually interact with these agents with your own language, in your own words. And it also allows you to interact in many different difficulty levels. You can ask, can you explain this concept as if I'm a high school student or as a middle school student? Can you explain this in more casual terms and stuff like that? So you can definitely adjust the difficulty level and let the AI explain the concepts in many different ways. Another critical area is research. So we are working with students and researchers in our fields, engineering fields, and do many research studies. So definitely we have seen, we are starting to see some benefits of using these artificial intelligence agents and chatbots in the research workflow. We can interact with these systems to collect data, process and manipulate our data sets, as well as potentially handle some of the critical parts of the research workflows, including scientific writing, writing partially certain parts of our papers and grants, as well as helping us to search and summarize the scientific literature, and even do work on writing the code to analyze the data, to process the data, and act as a lab partner, act as a field agent, as well as a data expert. And definitely, we have seen these benefits also affecting the publishing industry. We have seen many publishers, journal publishers, defined new policies around using these chatbots in the scientific writing, as well as including them in the authorship, as well as using extensively in scientific publishing. So we are going to talk about the challenges and limitations at the end, but I think one of the areas that we are seeing some benefits is these writing process, as well as summarizing the literature and supporting us with the code base. So I'd like to share one of the example systems today that we designed in the recent years. So the one of the critical area that we see the AI chatbots are used for is information communication. So users can interact with these systems, and we recently designed an intelligent system for communicating flood-related information, especially for Iowa and nearby states in the Midwest. The idea is for users to access flood-related information like flood forecasts, rainfall information, flood damage, and many other flood-related critical information that supports informed decision-making for public. So one question, for example, could be, which location did receive the maximum rainfall in Iowa City on April 25 at 5:30 p.m.? So this is just a generic question that you can interact with maybe a floodplain manager or a weather person. And this information can be provided by using a text input, multiple selection, and a voice input as well. So you can interact with multiple different ways. This information is handled by the natural language processing methods to understand the intention, understand the location, and time component, as well as the concepts that is asked in that question. And then these concepts, the keywords, the location and time information are passed to an inference engine. This will match these attributes and concepts in the database as well as the knowledge base, and it understands the location if it is somewhere that we have data in Iowa, in other states, as well as the date information is critical. And then this ontological keywords and all this internal information about the question is connected to a scoring engine that matches this knowledge with existing knowledge base and try to find the data and information relevant to this question, and then it will generate an output. So this could be interacted using a web browser and using the applications, the common applications that we see today, like Skype, Facebook Messenger. You can connect to Microsoft Cortana, Google Assistant, or many other online systems. You can also interact using some smart speakers like Google Home or Amazon Echo. So all these devices and applications is supporting users in many different ways. Once you create this AI system as a service, you can easily interact and connect to one of these devices or one of these applications, and you can interact with them as if you are talking to a virtual expert. You can say, okay, Google, let me talk to this fly expert, and then you can start asking questions about the vast amount of data available in these systems. So I'd like to talk about some other common examples of how we can utilize AI in different systems. One example here is a multi-hazard virtual reality environment. So you can connect AI as a service to these interactive environments. You can see a 360 view of this city, and the city has many incidents happening right now. So you can use that in an operational setting where you bring the field agents and all these operational units and staff dealing with the incident in a city. You can access all the information about the city. You can see the incident's time, all the information relevant to that incident. It could be flooding, wildfires, active shooting incidents, and traffic incidents, and many other things can be handled. And these systems provide this visual aspect of that in operation, but also you can bring real-time data from databases, sensors, satellites, and radars, and you can use this information to tackle these environmental challenge. It's more like a response system for emergencies. So you can use that virtual reality environment, interact with other users. You can connect with some field offices. You can connect with the different state and federal organizations and agencies like Homeland Security, Corps of Engineers, and many others work together in this virtual environment interact with these databases and data sets using AI, using chatbots, and access the best information available on the field. Also, you can connect that to holographic devices, see-through displays, and use that in the field. One example here is a virtual reality experience that we created. We call Flood Action VR. The idea is to simulate a flood event in a city like Philadelphia and use that information coming from AI to change the scenarios, change the weather information, change the flood information, and then use that challenge for training first responders, increasing the awareness for public, and help people understand the conditions under flood and help them to involve and participate in flood response and recovery efforts. So this is another area that we can benefit from these AI chatbots in operational settings, where we provide support during an emergency in the field. And last example here is actually the holographic experience, utilizing devices like Microsoft HoloLens or Magic Leap and other devices. We can create very realistic and detailed holograms of a city on our table, and we can look at this city and allocate resources, make plans, and make decisions real time during an emergency, like flooding and wildfire and traffic incidents and active shooters. And so you can easily utilize these holographic experience and next generation holographic experience to bring real-time data analytics, and interact with these systems using chatbots. You can use your voice to ask a question and get an answer about the data. This will help you to directly interact with these large-scale databases and knowledge systems and use them for real-time interaction, real-time data gathering, and use that in your decision-making process. So these are the critical areas that we see the opportunities and benefits of ChatGPT and many other conversational AI agents, including research, education, and these operational use cases. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the common challenges, limitations, and potential remedies on using the chatbots in engineering, especially ChatGPT and similar conversational agents. Let's start with the challenges. So none of these technological development comes without any challenge. So definitely we see challenges appearing in scientific publishing, in education, and many other domains are people using ChatGPT, both for benefits and opportunities, but also using for different things that are not potentially ethical or affecting educational process or research process. So definitely one limitation of these chatbots that they could potentially generate some errors in their reporting because they don't have access to all the information that you might need. Oftentimes they are limited with the data that they are trained. So potentially, like for example, ChatGPT includes only data until 2022. So you cannot access information after certain points. Definitely these agents can be potentially dynamically trained and dynamically provide with new information. So you could potentially get the better information as we move forward, but still you cannot 100% trust the information available. So you have to definitely make sure that factually the information is correct that you receive. Another one is, especially in the scientific literature, is that you might see that the ChatGPT and other AI agents generating scientific citations to sources that doesn't exist. They are imagining or they are just generating for the sake of consistency, but the citations or that literature may not exist. So you have to double check that these citations, these information exist in the literature. And definitely there are customized AI agents and chatbots that depends on real scientific databases. So you might end up using those customized agents for generating citations. But if you depend on some generic agents like ChatGPT and others, you might end up receiving some false citations. Another challenge is the bias. The bias could be coming from the sources, the knowledge sources that are designed by humans, and everybody has their own preference, their own belief, and their own background. So the information that we actually collect and provide might have biases directly in these knowledge bases, but also the bias could be potentially introduced during the training, intentionally or not. So definitely we have to be careful about the biases on certain topics and certain potential information. Another area is the incomplete or missing information. So you may not have the full details of information that you need. So you might expect some results without certain details. You might end up results that might have missing information. So make sure that you check all the information that you need exists in this result, as well as it's factually correct. Another area that we see more challenges, especially in education, is the plagiarism. Students using ChatGPT or other AI agents for generating content, for their homeworks, for their exams, and other potential educational targets, which also reduces the authenticity. So we are seeing more and more people use the ChatGPT or other AI agents to generate homeworks and generate answer questions and stuff. You see that the creativity and authenticity is reduced in these answers. It doesn't include potentially your original and authentic your thought process and your answer. Also, this makes the evaluation process harder for instructors, and so the instructors potentially having hard time evaluating these outputs and homeworks coming from students. They don't know how much of this homework includes ChatGPT results, how much is generated by the user or student, how much of this homework is generated by AI. This is making the evaluation process and scoring, grading process harder for instructors. And also the over-reliance on these chatbots using extensively as if it's the ultimate source is also creating more challenges as well. And it makes us potentially less efficient and maybe lazy in some other ways. So definitely over-relying on these sources, on these platforms and tools also could cause problems in the long run for our creativity and other production. And here are some of the remedies that we can consider. So we can use the ChatGPT and other agents in different contexts, but I think there are policies required by institutions and organizations and effective and potential acceptable ways of using ChatGPT or other AI systems. So we have seen publishers and many organizations started to release their own policies on use of AI in generating articles, generating proposals, and many other scientific content. Definitely, we need similar policies by universities, by institutions, and how effective and potential maybe acceptable ways of using this AI and not over-relying on them. Another potential remedy is training instructors, training students, and providing them guidelines on advantages, but also the limitations of AI and chatbots, and helping them to use these tools effectively, properly in their scientific workflows, in their education, research, and other activities. So we need to train these users, the instructors, faculty, as well as students on how to benefit from these AI tools, but also let them know about the limitations and challenges of these tools so that they will not make important critical mistakes. Another one is the ethical considerations, thinking about the AI's bias and other common challenges. So it's important to teach the ethics of using AI. Over-reliance, over-usage of AI, and other limitations and challenges should be also taught to the students and researchers. So we have to think about the ethical use of these tools, how to balance the use of these tools in the creative scientific process. Another critical maybe path is to integrate these tools directly into the coursework and research. So defining as if we are using calculators, as if we are using Excel or some other online or powerful software tools, we also integrate AI tools into our coursework and ask students to generate certain solutions using AI as if they are using scientific software like MATLAB or Excel or other tools. So AI could be one of the tools in our toolbox so that students can learn and effectively use AI tools and in their coursework, in their research, and hopefully this will improve their efficiency and give them more creative tools that they can utilize in their trainings. And finally, we can definitely depend on or use detectors for AI chatbots. So there are many online services and tools available today that you can pass a text and ask if this is generated by AI or similar tools. So this could potentially help us maybe tackle the plagiarism or some other challenges in scientific writing. So using these detectors, definitely they are not 100% foolproof, but still they are beneficial and useful for detecting the language and detecting the writing depending on AI chatbots. And finally, there are some potential limitations can be added to the policies on using AI in what context. So definitely we can ask students to use AI in the proper ways and also use that in certain workflows, but we could potentially limit their usage in certain use cases as well. So this will give us, hopefully help us to balance the usage of AI chatbots and usage in our engineering process, as well as education and research process. So definitely there are so many things that is discussed in in recent months after the release of AI. People are concerned about losing jobs and losing efficiency. People are concerned about the spam or some other more maybe advanced use of AI for malicious purposes. And we have seen significant developments and achievements in AI, but also there are significant concern about AI affecting the jobs and many important scientific process, operational work, and many other engineering applications. So I'm going to stop here and I'll be happy to answer any questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other, and I'll be happy to answer any questions about using these chatbots in engineering, education, and research and operational use cases. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Demeyer. So we have several questions, and I will kindly ask you to read all of them and answer one by one.
All right, let's see. So I see several questions here in the questions panel. All right, so one question is, would a proposal on using LLM for other data types, specifically music and audio language model for creative applications, be a valid topic? Is this for the journal, is a proposal, or is it for a scientific proposal? It looks like a question for the journal as a topic. So definitely there are tools available. The large language models are used for audio generation and music generation as well. Google and many others released similar products you can access online. They are mostly free. You can use these large language models as if you are interacting with the audio, the text language input. You can also use large language models for generating music, generating audio files. There are several new projects by Microsoft and others that 3 seconds of a human voice will be enough to replicate the entire language for that person. So we have seen significant developments in this field. So with a limited input on any human language, you can replicate that person's voice almost in a very good accuracy to potentially create some customized applications. We have seen some celebrities and other important people replicating their voice for audiobooks and some other applications. I think it's a valid topic. There's a proposal dealing with using LLMs for different data types like music and audio, and we've seen examples of the video as well. So this is the first question. Another one is the system flexible for coding in the identification of different types of timber species in plantation? So definitely it's a very, very specific topic. I'm not working in the plantation or other domain, but still the AI, especially deep learning applications, are very powerful on identification tasks. So this could be potentially used for identifying different timber species. So you can we have seen examples of AI used for identifying plant species, animals, and many others, potentially better than human accuracy, especially for animals and other fields. But it will be not different for timber species or others as well. I think you can definitely consider using deep learning models for identifying different timber species. All right, so there are a couple of comments and not questions. And then here, there's another one. We have seen that most of the research have been driven by scaling the data and model size. Do you see this trend to continue? Yes, definitely these language models get their power from more data and more potential model size. Definitely, it's a trend. We'll see potentially people working on larger models and larger data sets and stuff like that. But at the same time, people are working on more efficient models as well, smaller models that can do the job potentially in the similar accuracy, because we also want to focus on the performance of these models. Dealing with large scale models will make it hard for training as well as hard for running and generating outputs. So while we'll see more scale and more data is one of the paths that you can focus on, at the same time, we see more efficient models, more smaller models that could potentially handle similar data, similar tasks, also is another trend. There are some efficient networks, neural networks are designed for handling similar tasks. So definitely there are two paths. You can definitely invest on one, but dealing with large scale data and large scale models require more investments and require more computational power, which is very, very costly. Like training one of these large language models can go up to $5 to $10 million. So not everybody has that kind of access and power and resources. So focusing on more optimized and efficient models will be another path. Another question is, how much is safe and the ChatGPT can replace Google search? Definitely, we expect to see some change in the search process. So searching the web is great, and Google and many others are doing a great job, but still it's giving you a list of websites that could potentially have the answer. So you still need to go to that website, potentially find the answer that you're looking for. But dealing with an AI agent that has already accessed these websites, accessed these best results coming from the search, getting an instant answer or direct answer will be definitely better than getting a list of websites that could have your answer. So hopefully we'll see the search will be improved and accessing the knowledge and information will be improved, and answers that doesn't exist in these websites but have some relevant information also will be used by AI to generate the exact answer rather than getting a relevant answer. So definitely we expect to see some significant improvements in the search process. And I've seen Microsoft and Google and many others are trying to integrate these chatbots to their search process and search websites as well. Another question is whether using ChatGPT for checking and correcting grammatical errors in academic work is ethically acceptable or not. So definitely the grammar checking and language improvements are all available for the last probably 20 years. There are simple grammar checks available in the Microsoft Word. It's available online. There are lots of nice websites like Quillbot and many others providing grammatical and language improvements. Using AI may not be as different. Definitely some of these previous models were also using AI or similar methods. Definitely ChatGPT is generating the knowledge itself and definitely passing a paragraph or a page and asking ChatGPT to check the language, improve the language, potentially improve the tone or some other aspects is possible. Ethically, definitely there are challenges. If you are generating new text, there are more ethical issues because you are getting information from different sources and they are combined together. But if you are passing a text like a paragraph or page and asking to improve the language, definitely this is most of the text is coming from you, your creation, and improving the language may not be as an ethical issue compared to fully creating a new text. Another question here is if using ChatGPT for translating non-English languages into English for scholarly publication would be ethically acceptable. So to what extent the use of ChatGPT is not allowed ethically for scholarly publication? So we have seen different potential policies around using the ChatGPT for scientific publication. Many publishers release their policies on how much you can use and how to acknowledge this. So definitely they want the researchers to disclose the amount of ChatGPT usage in their scientific publication. How much of the text is generated by ChatGPT, how much is generated by the user, by the researcher, should be disclosed. And also translating an article from one language to another, potentially making it more accessible is, I think acceptable, because as long as you have access to the English version, accessing to Greek version or English version and Turkish version or any other language will be, I think, important for people with limited language capabilities. So accessing these articles in their own language, making them understand, making them access the scientific knowledge easier. Hopefully, I don't see too much ethical challenge for accessing the knowledge available in English, and it could be accessible in any other language as well. Another question here is that how AI's technology impacted the landscape of scientific publication. I think it's a similar question. Some examples of how researchers and scientists have leveraged OpenAI's models and enhanced their work and accelerate the pace of scientific discovery. All right, it's probably similar. So we have seen people using AI and ChatGPT to improve the language of their articles, potentially use it for answering or writing certain sections, like potentially introduction section, even methodology or some other sections can be improved or written directly by ChatGPT or other AI models. But also people using these AI models for writing proposals, generating research outlines for students. There are many things I think you can do with these agents in your scientific workflow. And a couple of other questions. Should we introduce chatbots into teaching academic writing to first semester students? Will they be able to write a paper without a chatbot later in the careers? And should we enforce and teach how to use it ethically? Definitely, we have to teach them how to use it ethically, but also how to use it efficiently, because writing an entire page or a chapter or a book definitely takes so much time. Using AI could benefit and improve that process, but also we don't want to limit the creativity of the students or authors and researchers. So we expect them to focus on the creative parts and use AI for creating and generating some of the repeated parts. Potentially could be acceptable, but also we don't want the students or researchers to depend heavily on these tools and not do anything creative and lose their focus on certain scientific process. So we want them to use it wisely and efficiently, but also limit their usage in certain levels. And maybe we also need to be creative as instructors to provide certain homeworks and try to force them use ChatGPT or other agents more creatively for their scientific writing. Another relevant question is will ChatGPT make plagiarism happen? Definitely the ChatGPT or other agents can be used for generating text, and this text could be coming from sources without their knowledge. So I think we need better AI agents that can also disclose the source of information. So when we ask ChatGPT to write something about climate change, we also want ChatGPT to potentially provide the sources of this information, where this model get this data, where are the links, where are the scientific knowledge. So I think it's important to potentially connect these knowledge, these contexts with the scientific literature, and potentially some AI agents can bring that kind of sources of the information that they are utilizing. So I can potentially stop here. I don't want to go more of my time and give the other speaker some time for the talk as well as the questions. Any other maybe final questions I can answer, but I'll be happy to also connect with some of these audience remotely as well after the meeting. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer by email, and you can connect with me if you have any ideas as well. All right, thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Demir. We have two more questions, but if you want, you can answer them later. And also we have one raised hand. I will allow one of our attendees to say what they hear. Okay, thank you very much again, Dr. Demir. So our second speaker is Dr. Haridimos Kondelakis, and if you're ready, I will kindly ask you to share your screen and start your presentation.
Okay, so in this talk I will combine two works of mine. So I will talk about leveraging AI chatbots for summarizing knowledge graphs, and then some guidelines of the future. And I will try to align those two works in the mode threat or opportunity. So I will start my talk, of course, about who I am. I'm Haridimos Kondelakis, a researcher, Institute of Computer Science in Greece. You can find more about me on my webpage. Here is my email. You can directly send me an email for your questions, and also you can see my Skype. I do mainly data management, and usually I apply data management in health. So in the second part of my talk, you will see what kind of principles I have tried to apply in health, but they are applicable overall in AI, so they are relevant certainly, as you will see. First, I will talk about what is an AI chatbot. My colleague Ibrahim already explained that is an AI program that attempts to simulate typed conversation with the aim to fool, at least temporarily, a human being into thinking that they were talking to another person. Of course, this definition is a really old one by Simon Lavin, but it still somehow is applicable today. And this certainly is relevant to the Turing test, where a human agent is engaged into two isolated dialogues, and then he tries to identify if the one that talks to him is indeed a computer or a human agent. And if the human cannot identify which one talks to him, then the machine has successfully passed the Turing test. So in a sense, AI chatbots are AI agents that try to pass successfully the Turing test in a way. And we have already seen several, let's say, prediction about the future. This prediction comes from 2019, who says that by 2020, the average person will have more conversations a day with bots than they do with their spouse. I'm sure that this has not been realized, although AI chatbots are really widely used, still not to that extent. However, today we are facing a new era in the AI chatbots by large language models who are being trained on a substantial corpus of text and data, and they try to perform natural language processing tasks. And due to their great and, let's say, extraordinary ability to pack large amount of knowledge into a large parameter set, and this gives us the possibility and the flexibility to use their implicit knowledge without domain training. This is really important, because without any further training, we can get them and use them directly out of the box. So here, with those recent AI chatbots, we have several opportunities. Ibrahim already covered several of those. For example, support for non-native English-speaking scientists. Those chatbots are, let's say, language independent, so they can work independent of the English language, who most of text are captured, and this is great. And they can also help us for data analysis. So assume you have enormous tables or big text and you would like to do some analysis, just using ChatGPT or Bard AI, you can directly issue some questions and then you can immediately get some results without having to spend all the time to examine line by line the big tables or the big text, and this is a great opportunity. Also, it helps formulating hypotheses. So research moves by generating hypotheses and then trying to test if they are true, if somebody else has done a similar work, if this hypothesis is being generated by someone else and supported by papers in the literature. And this is now great because you can directly go and ask ChatGPT whether a specific hypothesis is known and who has already worked on this hypothesis, or if it is worth investigating this hypothesis or devoting time, and then you can get some quick answers on it. Of course, it might not be always true. However, we will examine this in the threats section. Highly related and tightly related with the aforementioned opportunities is also text summarization. Enormous text gets summarized in just a few lines and letting us understand what a big text is talking about. Of course, this is highly relevant with question answering. Not only we have a summary of the text, but we can quickly answer questions out of thousands of pages of text, out of the text that is now available on the web. And of course, you have already seen that ChatGPT writes also a code. So you can ask a code in any programming language and you can get an example, let's say, answer with some code which is pretty much correct, at least in generic sense. And it can help students write their code, write their programs. And already when you write a code, the task is to find something similar, to understand how it works and be able to update it. So to this direction, AI chatbots can also help. I will focus now on how we leverage ChatGPT on our work here presented in the Extended Semantic Web Conference just 1 month ago about summarizing large knowledge graph. And I will just give you some slides that we had in our demonstration. You all know ChatGPT, and then you can go right now and ask the following question: give me a summary of Wikidata. So let me tell you that Wikidata is an enormous graph. It is actually the knowledge graph for Wikipedia, out of Wikipedia, but let's say in a more structured way. It's an entire graph with links between the entities in the graph. So all knowledge is consumed and it formulates a nice knowledge graph. So if you ask ChatGPT, give me a summary of Wikidata, you will get 2 pages of text. Of course, this is nice. This is indicative. It nicely explains what is there. However, in the, let's say, Twitter and Facebook era, people do not read 2 pages of text to quickly answer a question. So this is somehow boring in recent days. And what would be preferable instead is something like this. Give me a visual summary of Wikidata, and then you can see directly that the knowledge graph focuses on humans, on geography. Key nodes there are science, animals, humans, arts, politics, economics, etc. More than this, you would like to identify a visual summary of Wikidata as of June 2017 or 16 or last year or whatever. So you know that knowledge graph and information that we have available changes over time as our knowledge evolves over time, as more news articles are produced, as our understanding of the technology changes and shifts based on research. So you can use our tool in order to visualize a past version of this graph. And you see, for example, here, that you have geography, more prominent, religion as well, history, etc. And then we have another paper in the same conference that says, I'm Charidimos Kondilakis, give me a personalized summary of Wikidata. So now the technology behind knows that I'm Charidimos Kondilakis, my profile is online, knows that I'm interested in geography, and based on my interest, another, let's say, visual summary is produced, more appropriate for me. So now we have a personalized summary. So this, in essence, covers a second paper that we have in the same conference. And let me explain how we produce those visual graphs. First, in order to understand user interest, we exploit query logs. So we have thousands of queries available that are offered by the Wikidata itself. And based on the information that we have there, we can identify what users were querying in the past. And we conceive that the things that users queried in the past, those are the most interesting points. So we can identify the prominent, let's say, nodes, and identify which were the nodes that were mostly queried by the users. And then this helps on extracting nodes from user queries. And then we need to classify them into groups. Okay, so we have, for example, Putin, Einstein, that is included in user queries. But in order to see a graph like this, we should somehow cluster them, put them together in big groups. So how do we group them? We have two methods of grouping them. One is to group them by the hierarchy they belong. So, for example, Einstein and Putin are both people. So I only put here in the summary the node person, for example. However, what will be interesting and what we did here is ask ChatGPT to tell us in which one-word generic category each specific node identified in user queries belongs. So now, in essence, what we do is for each entity included in user queries, we ask ChatGPT classify it in one generic category. And then the number of times that geography is returned, the bigger the node here that you see is. So in this way, we can generate nice visual diagrams, helping us to visually depict the groups that users were searching at that specific period of time. The same can happen with the properties. So you see here that the more strong is a line connecting two nodes, the more times this, for example, geography and politics exist in the same query of the user. And this is the way that we can produce those nice visuals. And in essence, ChatGPT is used here as a classifier, classifying the nodes that the users are querying into various categories. And then we exploit all this information to be able to visualize in time. So we stick in a specific month and say, produce a nice diagram for the specific month. And then if you know that those queries have been issued by Charis Kondilakis, then you are able to propose something only for Charis Kondilakis. Or for example, if you see that Charis Kondilakis in his own webpage is more interesting for geography, then you can make more prominent those nodes. And of course, we can produce a series of summaries. So examine how each month the summary shapes, and we can have interesting findings. For example, that, 2018, we had the US elections, and people were looking at that time on politicians. So you can see that humans are become, let's say, this node becomes bigger as we have users looking for politicians there, etc. So this demonstrates how we exploited ChatGPT for summarizing big graphs, and I've already demonstrated to you how we used it. Now we can move to the threats. According to Stephen Hawking, the rise of powerful AI will be either the best or the worst thing ever to happen to humanity, and we do not yet know which. So along with the opportunities come great threats. So a big threat is that due to chatbots' ability to produce text, this text appears credible. However, there is a real risk of false information being propagated, and this might lead to scientific inaccuracies, public confusion. Also, my colleague before already talked about the possibility of job displacement because the automation of certain tasks, such as, for example, data analysis, could render some roles obsolete or reduce the need for human intervention in this area. And of course, it is essential to recognize that while AI chatbots can automate specific tasks, it cannot replace qualities of human creativity, critical thinking, and problem-solving abilities, maybe not yet, but we have to see that in the future. And of course, you have already been seen several, let's say, failures. For example, you have seen Google's AI chatbot Bard that made a factual error in the very first demo. And then the Bard was closed, and now a new release has been available on the net. And also you see that other pitfalls, for example, Apple restricted its employees from using ChatGPT over fear of data leaks. You have seen already OpenAI that closed for a few days ChatGPT in order to fix a bug that allowed some users to see titles from other users' chat history. And you have seen already leaks of user credit card details or Windows activation codes. And you have seen a lot of stories in the news. Something also relevant is hallucinations in AI. So for example, I have here two examples. User input says when Leonardo da Vinci painted Mona Lisa, and then you have an automated response saying that Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa in 1815. And the correct is that Mona Lisa was painted in another period, continuing until 1517. Or another example, tell me a fact about George Washington. And then you have an AI-generated response that George Washington was known for inventing the cotton gin. However, this is not true. And the fact is that it tells you quite extensive text, especially ChatGPT, that convince you in many cases that what it says is true. However, it is not true. Now, something to consider here is that all those large language models are trained upon thousands or millions of texts that are available on the network. And data now are the most valuable resource to the human needs, let's say the new oil data, and this is highly been acknowledged by all major, let's say, companies and vendors now. However, it is true that ChatGPT and all large language models have been trained upon texts that possibly are not there, that they are available on the network. So a critical, let's say, question is whether they had the right to be trained on all those texts that do not belong to them. So this is something that we should think and consider. And this comes along with our new work that it is just been submitted to Lancet Digital Health, and has to do about consensus guidelines for trustworthy and deployable AI. Of course, this has been produced for healthcare, but here I will speak generic for AI. So there is a set of principles called Future AI. If you search them online, you will find a relevant site, also the collaborators that we are working on those principles, and soon you will see also a paper. So those principles I will talk about are fairness, universality, traceability, usability, robustness, and explainable. And we believe that those guiding principles should be respected in all AI tools, and especially on chatbots, in order to render them trustworthy. For example, let's first talk about fairness. AI tools should maintain the same performance across individual and groups of individuals, including underrepresented and disadvantaged groups. For example, it is true that ChatGPT has been trained on text written from humans, and humans, in many cases, they make discriminations. So it is common to find a discrimination there, or an opinion about groups underrepresented or disadvantaged. This is something that is critical and should somehow be paid on the proper attention. Then we have also universality. AI tools should be generalizable outside the control environment where it was built. So this principle should be thought about or considered when building chatbots, because chatbots should be able to work outside their environment where they were built. The same about traceability. So a major problem already Ibrahim talked about is that you have an answer, but you do not know how you got the answer and why the answer is that. So AI chatbots and tools should be able to document and monitor the complete trajectory of how they came to a conclusion, to let us understand, to let us validate why this is the conclusion and to believe it or not. So this is the traceability. And then we have the usability. So when users will be able to use the AI tool to achieve a goal efficiently and safely. Efficiently is something that pretty much they have recent chatbots achieved. You can get an answer right away. However, safety is a different story. If you ask a chatbot whether you should consume a specific medication, this is questionable. And safety is not guaranteed. You should be careful on what you ask and what kind of response you get and how you exploit the knowledge that you get and the answers that you get. So this is still critical. And then we have robustness. So AI tools should maintain performance and accuracy under unexpected variation in the input data. So assume that you have a large event happening, a big earthquake, and this happens right now. If you ask ChatGPT, you will have no information about it. So having the knowledge base of those large language models up to date is something tricky. It is known that the last version of ChatGPT had the knowledge up to 2021, but since then many things have changed. So they should somehow keep up to date and consider also that you need an enormous amount of money spent in order to train those large language models. So this is something you should consider. And as I already talked to you, we have to be able to explain, to have meaningful information about the logic behind the AI decision. So not only document why we have a decision, but also explain the rationale behind the decision. And this becomes really, really critical when you in the health domain. So why a doctor should suggest something and not something else? The patient should know. And concluding, AI chatbots like ChatGPT hold a real promise for many human tasks. They utilize natural language processing to learn from internet data, offer AI-driven written response to user questions. Of course, they present challenges, but also transform scientific inquiry. with the potential to foster innovation. And of course, they are both threat and an opportunity. And using them necessitates ethical and human expertise consideration. Scientists and people should view them as tools, prioritizing transparency and responsibility. And future AI places, let's say, a good starting point on the principle that should be considered on using and on developing such, let's say, AI tools like chatbots. And something you also should consider is think about when we try to understand how to fly. So there was several, let's say, studies and manuscripts back in the 16th century about trying to identify what is the resemblance of human and birds and how humans could fly. And of course, the way that humans could fly is not by mimicking birds themselves, but devising mechanism and airplanes. So I believe it is the same today. AI is not something to replace human and to have a second, let's say, human next to us, but it can be used as a tool like the planes that we used and we devised in order to let us fly. So thank you very much. I will be happy to answer any question that you may have.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kondelakis. So we can check the Q&A box, and I will kindly ask you to read all questions and answer all of them. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I will.
Sorry, several questions are for Dr. Demar. We will come back on that later, or if you agree, we can answer them first.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So there's one question, but definitely my colleague also can answer some of these questions because these are all common areas on education and research. So one question here is what impact could it have on the education system? So we talk about some of the challenges in the plagiarism and some other ethical challenges, but also we talked about the benefits like using AI chatbots as study partners, tutors, using as a teaching assistant or instructor, becoming a reality as we see more and more tools are available. Many online education systems are using AI as a supportive agent that you can solve a question and AI gives you hint and instructions to understand the question as well, like Khan Academy and many others. So I suggest definitely using AI in the educational context to support students, give them customized and tailored learning, help them to access the information easily compared to some traditional methods. And we have seen AI used for creating very customized content as well as customized learning methods for students as well. I think this is one area. And the second question is accuracy. Maybe my colleague here can also answer these questions as well. So definitely you can continue with the questions and I'll be able to chime in as needed. But would you like to go for the next question, how accurate the ChatGPT is?
Sure. So accuracy is not guaranteed in ChatGPT. Actually, I would say is pretty inaccurate in many ways. So you should be aware of this and be critical on the results that you see. And it is, for example, it is regular that you ask, tell me a science who had a paper and tell me the name of the paper. And ChatGPT returns the name of the author and a paper in a conference that makes sense. However, the paper is not existing at all. So you should be careful on this. Also, we have a following question. What is this variation? Some educational institutions do acknowledge and encourage the use of ChatGPT while others do not. So I believe this is up to the individual institution. As we already said, they are tools. The way that you use the tools could be good or bad. So in my university, for example, in my courses, I teach to students how to use ChatGPT to help them starting with their code or to answer their questions. However, then I also teach them how to properly use them, not to use them for just copy pasting, but develop a whole criticism on top of it. So this is encouraged. Of course, just copying someone else's work, this is discouraged, of course, and this is something that already was there before the chatbots. Students could go and copy the answer of other students from other universities. And of course, this is not ethical, not beneficial to the students. And then we have another question, how it can help researchers in humanities where there is no role of numerical data. I would say that chatbots are not only for numerical data. In fact, they are mostly focused on textual data. So in this sense, of course, any domain, including humanities, can benefit. Big text can be summarized, and it does not make sense if it is numerical or textual data. Primarily, the focus is on textual data. And then we have that ChatGPT refused to give a visual summary. Of course, this is our work. It's not OpenAI work. If you would like to see it visually, you should come to me, send me an email. We have already a demo available online. I can send you the link and try it. This is not for OpenAI, and unless OpenAI ask it from us, they won't have it. Okay, so that was the visual summary question. And then we have another. In the presence of this very performant LLM, are knowledge graphs necessary? Also, how can knowledge graph be used in combination with LLMs to improve their current performance? It is true that there are two sides of the same coin. So OpenAI said that we have enormous amount of text. Let's see if we can make them interpretable and consumable by persons, and enabling persons to directly enter textual questions and get back the answers. On the other hand, knowledge graphs have been developed because we believed that textual is not structured enough, and we wanted a better structure in order to model information that will be structured and more readily to be consumed by user queries. So you would have more, let's say, accuracy. So I see them as two sides of the same coin, but they both target the same thing, to enable humans rapidly get answer to their questions. And eventually they will converge, I see. So we have information now both structured and unstructured, and it is true that we need answers to both of structured and unstructured information. So I see them as complementary. We can have answers on, let's say, relational structured data or knowledge graph data, and on the other hand, we can have questions on unstructured data. And then can you briefly describe how knowledge graph-based methods can benefit from LLMs and how LLMs can benefit from KGs? As I said, they are complementary. We have information both in knowledge graph and in text. We can exploit them all together, and if we could somehow union them and have answer from both knowledge graphs and text information, this would be wonderful. I already presented an example how we used ChatGPT in order to cluster, let's say, nodes from a knowledge graph. It was an experiment that we played, but we already found the results rather interesting. So in that sense, one can benefit another. And then we have from Giancarlo a question. We know that ChatGPT is a powerful tool, have some risk and limitation. If a user were to use a sarcasm or humor in their message, ChatGPT may fail to pick up the intended meaning and provide a response inappropriate or irrelevant. How can solve ChatGPT this problem in future? There are many ways of resolving this, of identifying sarcasm. For example, there are now lexicons identifying sarcastic words or sarcastic sentences, and I'm pretty sure that ChatGPT, the way it trains, it can identify the relation between certain words and somehow identify sarcasm. Now, waiting for a response, including sarcasm or taking into consideration this is something yet to be delivered, but I'm pretty sure this will be soon there. So I do not see, to be honest, I see the problem, but solutions are already there, and it is just a matter of time till they will be appropriately incorporated in their model. Then we have another question. Shall we expect other AI-dependent tools like ChatGPT to keep emerging? I would say yes. It's only a few months till the announcement of ChatGPT, and then we already have BART AI and a series of other tools emerging. This will keep happening. And I hope that we will see a rapid improvement in their quality as well. I believe this is something that we should expect the following months, years, and we're going to see a lot of such intelligent chatbots emerging. And then we have another question. What are the strategies to increase the originality of a pitch of writing using ChatGPT? The originality. I could imagine that writing your own text and then asking for ChatGPT to improve it, it will be a strategy to increase its originality already. Or you can get a first piece, ask ChatGPT to provide something, and then a human being could provide critical thinking or enhance the text. So it could be either way, first ChatGPT and then human, or human and ChatGPT, or you can see this in iterations. There is always an opportunity. You can think it as a colleague. So you write something, then you ask a colleague, improve it, or tell me your opinion on this, or improve that part, and then you will put more thinking and more effort on it, and in each iteration, it will be improved. So this is natural life as well. So this is a way to improve the originality. And then we have another question regarding fairness. What is your comment on hiding methods and ideas because it is dangerous to share with the public research community? I'm not sure what is the dangerous thing to publish. For example, if you think about methods to create bombs, and you would like to hide the methods of creating bombs from ChatGPT, I see them already available on the internet. This information is already available. I can understand why it is dangerous, and that appropriate, let's say, methods for identifying the usage of such, let's say, guidelines should be available. And there are also ethical concerns, but already this information is available. And for me, now ChatGPT is, let's say, a search engine that offers access to this information that it is already there. So I would say it's more like this information being available online or not, and not hiding it from the search engines. I'm not sure if this answers your question. And then we have another question. Are these technology systems not compromising students' critical thinking and reasoning skills? Let me tell you that everything compromises critical thinking and reasoning, but also if we succeed, if we teachers succeed in letting students see the pitfalls, the threats, and appropriately use them, this will be a success. So we already have solutions to the exercises from previous semesters to previous examination from previous semester. We have other courses taught in other universities who might have similar, let's say, exercises. Just copy pasting will not benefit anyone, and it's already there several decades now. But being able to critically examine, understand, reason on top of it, this is something challenging, and it is up to teachers to properly persuade students into correctly using the tools that they have in their hands. So I see chatbots not a real threat. We always had such threats around, but we should pay the proper attention, not keep our eyes closed for their existence, but adopt them, embrace them, and teach our students how to properly use them. And then we have another question. What version of ChatGPT are you using to be able to present visual presentation? It's not a fully fledged version of ChatGPT. It is our own implementation, as I said before. You will not find it in OpenAI. So that was the last question.
We have one more.
If we are okay with OpenAI hiding the technology used to create ChatGPT, I can pretty much tell you that the data that have been used, probably it's not their ownership. So I believe this is the reason that hide their data. Now about the specifics and the properties and how many layers and what exactly hyperparameters used to create ChatGPT, I can understand that they are a private company and they would like to keep it disclosed, but still, technology is out there. I mean, you can develop your own version of ChatGPT, given that you have the appropriate resources. So Google is doing it, Microsoft is doing it. You could do it if you had the appropriate resources to invest in training such a model. It's not something, let's say, it's not rocket science. All tools are already there.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Kondelakis. I think that we are done with questions. We answered all of them. I just want to say thank you to our both speakers again. I appreciate your time. We enjoyed your presentation, and thank you again for sharing your knowledge and experience. Also, thank you to all our attendees for attending this webinar. If you don't have any questions, I think that we can end this webinar.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.